Hi, this is Gorelick, and welcome to the Connected Community. So hi, this is Gorelick, and this is part of the learning community, the Connected Community, and we're going to talk this session about the healthcare system, and specifically about what the next steps for the healthcare system should be. We're actually going to make some recommendations as to what we think the next step should be. However, the whole thing is an open plan discussion by a connected community. So the purpose here is to reach out to subject matter experts and people who are interested and come up with the best next steps. To start the discussion, I think we have to set a baseline in terms of our values. One of my key values, and I think, Ron, one of your key values, is the universal health care coverage. I don't see why in a community you shouldn't want everybody covered. After all, everybody goes in the stores. You don't want them sick, spreading TB. I mean, the healthier the community, the better the community will thrive. So I think it makes sense to want universal health care coverage. Now, this is the other value, Ron, that you put on paper. You say the same cost for everyone or cost linking to a means test. Well, I think those are different, because if you link it to a means test, then you won't have the same cost for everyone. But I think it should be both. Why can't it be both? That in general, you have the same cost for everyone, but then there is means tests that you could apply. Another value is that cost linked to behavior. So irresponsibility shouldn't get you more money, it should get you less benefit. Access to all to the same quantity of healthcare. And this could be easily, I think the analogy would be the roads, where everybody has equal access to the roads, whether you're rich or poor, white or black, that everyone has access to the roads, everyone should have access to the same roads, and everyone should have access to the same healthcare. This is perhaps the most important one, transparency. In order for capitalism, in order for free markets to work, you need information. I, as a consumer, have to be able to decide where I'm going to spend my money. So I need a lot of information. And I need to have as much transparency in that information as possible so that I can really value it. We'll talk more about what transparency does in future sessions. But this is an important value that we have to share, that everybody in the community wants transparency. That is a goal, a value, a base structure of the healthcare system. So Ron, this is some of the things you wanted to say in terms of where we are now. Cost of approaching 20% of GDP, more than twice the average of other developed countries. That's interesting. Healthcare costs forecast to increase 6% a year for the next 5 years. It will then be up by 33%, which actually makes perfect sense in terms of we're an aging population. We're keeping people alive longer, so naturally the costs are going to go up. We don't just take people in the old days, just tell them, go walk into the woods when you're ready to die. Healthcare costs for a family of four now averages $24,000, and I think that's probably true. I think that's a fact. We'd have to validate it, but it's sort of interesting. A family of four over 20 years is going to spend like $500,000 in healthcare insurance. Are they going to take out more than $500,000? And I think we need to look at healthcare as an insurance and how insurance operates to really get a good clue on coming up with the best solutions. U.S. corporations burdened with 10% additional employee costs versus international competition. I think that's important. We want our local communities to thrive, which means they need to be competitive. The U.S. is 5% of the world's population, but consumes over 50% of the world's prescription drugs. That's a fascinating number. And I wonder, Ron, if it's in other percentages like that, where 5% of the world's population, but consume 50% of the world's energy, for example. It'd be interesting to know, even though we're a small population of the world, what else do we consume unusually? And healthcare bankruptcies at an all-time high. I think that if we talk about values, a healthcare bankruptcy, to me, should not be valued. We should do whatever we can to prevent somebody from going bankrupt because of healthcare costs. And therein lies the problem: is where do you draw some lines? Some more additional facts. The U.S. is the world leader in healthcare innovation and in many areas of surgery and treatment. Okay, I don't know that to be the case, but I'll take your word for it. Out of all the 34 developed countries, the U.S. is the only for-profit system. All governments, all others are government regulated. And the for-profit system is interesting in terms of solutions, and we're going to talk more about that. Competition only works in an efficient marketplace if the consumer has cost and value data to enable them to differentiate between competitors. I mean, this, you can find any number of economic, Nobel laureates who talk about how important asymmetrical or symmetrical information is, that the more information you have, the better the likelihood that the transaction will benefit both parties. We need to talk a lot more about that, but I think that's absolutely true. All of these countries provide universal health care through efficient utilization. Okay, I'll take your word for it. And then in quality of overall outcomes, nearly all the developed countries are rated higher than the US. And this is important, we need to understand. And those are some facts. I bet some people might argue that fact. All right, barriers to change. And I have here a quote from Machiavelli. Let me read it because it's just brilliant. It must be remembered that there is nothing more difficult to plan, more doubtful of success, no more dangerous to manage than a new system. For the initiator has the enmity of all who would profit by the preservation of the old institution, and merely lukewarm defenders in those who would gain by the new ones. I mean, independent of the fact that the words are just beautifully put together. I mean, they really knew how to write then. Our technology, I think, will learn, we don't necessarily write. But I agree with what he says, that it's in the human nature. It's part of our human nature to resist change. And it's hard, even if the benefit is greater, you may risk, the bird in the hand is worth two in the bush kind of thing. So this is brilliant, and we'll talk now about the barriers specifically to the healthcare industry. So the first barrier is the political system and the fact that the healthcare industry is one of the major spenders on lobbying. Well, this is great. This is exactly correct. And it goes in poker, the analogy would be a big stack, right? That if somebody has a big stack, they can push people around. So I think this is a barrier to change. They're not going to, the political system and the healthcare industry, as it stands now, is not going to want change. But go back to Machiavelli, they're not going to want change that hurts them. I mean, if you could change the CEO's benefit, 100%, they're going to like that change. But they're not going to like any change where they would perceive to get less benefit from it. The capitalist culture in the US and the belief in market forces. This to me is the biggest thing we need to talk about, because if you listen to all the GOP presidential candidates, they all said the same thing, that the way to solve the healthcare industry is market forces. And in fact, I bet if we looked at Tom Price's proposal, we're going to see that. I'll get that and get a quote up here. Loss of a drive of innovation, if you say so. Potential loss of jobs, particularly in the healthcare administration, and that goes back to the first point. All right, so what are the next steps? We're going to talk about a lot of next steps, but this is the first one we want to talk about. Is a next step would be just to expand Medicare. Medicare has the infrastructure in place, but we would still have the issue of competing delivery systems. Each state would then need a healthcare resources plan to effectively meet the demographic and geographic needs of the people. And I think, Ron, the key here is that I'm not sure we need 50 different states. Why have 50? I bet we can get by with 4 or 5, 3 or 4. I mean, look at Google, Yahoo, Bing. I mean, we only have a few systems out there. There's no reason to have 50 different systems. And in fact, when you go back to the bullet we talked about, the political and lobbying issues, that's why they would resist, those powers would resist giving up their state power. But I think it's something we need to look at. Existing resources would have to be incented to change the way they work together and come under a regulated cost structure. Obviously, how you're going to incent the right behavior here is critical, and we need to talk about that. Medicare could become cheaper with the inclusion of younger people. Obviously, it's an insurance. So therefore, you broaden the plan, especially with healthy people, it's going to make everything better. And that's it. Hope you liked it. Tune in for our next show where we'll go into more detail on this and explore another next step. Thank you very much.